Today we're going to install the Flex water softener. This is a new line of water softener that we're offering. Although it looks a lot like the store-bought systems, these are much different. They're much more robust. The first thing that you're going to do is we're going to unpackage this unit. And when you remove the packaging, you want to look for this white box, which will be usually in the top. Once you get this out, this is all your connection fittings or whatever. You can set that to the side. Then you're going to pull your actual unit out. Now, when this unit is shipped, there will be packing and whatnot inside here. You want to pull the inflatable bag out, and also there will be 10 feet of drain tube that will be in that unit as well. You want to pull that out. Now when you get your unit and you pull it out of the box, you'll see there'll be a hole in the side here. This hole is for the brine tank overflow. Now when you install this, it's going to come in the white box. So you're going to need to open up the white box, pull the fitting out. The fitting will have a barb fitting with a rubber washer and a nut. And this is the actual barb fitting. The washer goes on the inside, so you're going to put the fitting in, put the washer on, put the nut on, then tighten this down to where it's hand tight. If you want to take some channel locks, you can take some channel locks and go ahead and snug it a little bit further. So once you have that snug, we can go ahead and close the lid for now. And the next thing we're going to do is choose the location for the softener. Now when you choose this location, we want to be as close to the incoming water source as possible. But we also want to keep in mind that we want to have a drain close. This is an 1.5 inch pipe with an air gap fitting, which you can purchase from our site. So we have our location now. We want to make sure that this is installed on a level ground, close to the drain and close to the incoming water source. The other thing to keep in mind is that you will need a 110 power outlet. Now you can use an extension cord with this, although I don't recommend it. I'd rather it be plugged directly to the source. But I do recommend that you use a surge protector. Now, once you have this in place, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this top panel so we can get to all our connection points. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver, and there's 2 screws on the back corners. And actually, you don't really have to remove them. You can just loosen them up because the top panel is going to slide off. Once you take it loose, you pull it over and let it sit to the side. There are arrows that are actually in the mold. This one actually has the sticker over it a little bit, but you can see there's an arrow that points towards the unit, and then there's an arrow that points away from the unit. The arrow pointing towards the unit is the inlet. The arrow pointing away from the unit is the outlet. In the white box, you'll have 2 different types of fittings. You'll have either a straight fitting, where you can come straight out of the unit out of the back, or you'll have an elbow fitting, where you can go straight up and hook to the unit that way. For this application, we're going to use the elbow fittings. These are 3/4 threaded fittings, male. When you install these into the system, you're going to pull these red clips out. The O-ring side will snap into place. You want to push it in until you feel the O-ring all the way in, and you'll know it's all the way in because the fitting will be flush with the bypass. Also, if you don't have it all the way in, you won't be able to get this clip in that easy. But if you take a little silicone grease and rub around these O-rings, these fittings will slide in really easily. You can also pick this grease up on our website. Once it's in, you pop the clip in. Now we've chosen our fittings. We're ready to go there. We have our drain line here. We'll hook that up in a little bit. Now what we want to do is we want to make our connections to the plumbing system. In order to do this, we're going to shut off the main water, which in this case I have a shut off here. And then drain the water system at a faucet, a garden spigot, something like that, until you have all the pressure off. Preferably something low. If you're in the basement or if you're on the first level, you want to drain at that level. You don't want to drain above you because you'll still have a plumbing system full of water. Once this has been drained, the pressure's been relieved, then we're going to cut the pipe. Obviously with copper, you're going to need the copper cutter, For PVC, you'll need a PVC cutter or one of these, and this works for PEX as well. Okay, once you've cut your pipe and you've removed enough to get your fittings in, we can install our fittings. We're using John Guest Quick Connect fittings for this installation, but again, depending on your pipe style, depends on what type of fittings that you'll have to use. These particular fittings, they're going to push on into an O-ring, and we lock the collar down. Once you have those fittings on, then we can extend the pipe down so we can get to our softener. Now, each one of these softeners are going to ship with flex connectors. This makes installation really, really simple. So what we want to do in this case is we're going to use this flex connector on these fittings. We want to somewhat size up how long the pipe needs to be that's going to come down. Now, because of the way I've ran this, I'm going to have to crisscross these because I'm feeding from the right, but the right side here is my outgoing line. So I have to crisscross these. And this is something that you may have to do in the field. I mean, I very easily could have fed it right to left and made this all look perfect, but I want you to get an idea of, sometimes you got to adapt and overcome. It depends on what type of water system you have, what type of direction it runs, what type of piping. In this case, like I said, we're going to have to cross over. Now, once you have that link, most cases you can basically make two pipes the same size. They're going to be at the same points of connection. Now we have our two pipes to come down. We're going to push these into the fittings, lock the collar, and lock the collar. Now your pipes are in place. Once the pipes are in place, these flex connectors are made to push right up on this pipe. These flex connectors are going to work with PVC or CPVC, they're going to work with PEX, or they're going to work with CTS copper. Once you have them on there, you push it all the way down until it stops, and you shouldn't be able to pull it back out. Now that both lines are hooked up, I mean, your piping will be more secure than this. Like I said, this is for demonstration only. But once they're all hooked up, you should look something like this. Now, obviously, if we're feeding right to left, we wouldn't have to crisscross the pipe. We could go straight in. This particular case, we had to do that. Now, once we have those in place and hooked up, we don't want to forget to snug our fittings down here. You're going to want to run them down hand tight so you can't move them anymore. And then you're going to snug them with your channel locks. Once that's done and we're in the bypass mode, remember when our handles are facing each other, then that's when we're going to turn the water back on. And I would do it slowly just so you don't overpressurize too quickly. But then once the water pressure's back on, now we're going to inspect all of our plumbing for leaks. If you have any leaks, we want to fix those now. We don't want to move forward until those leaks are fixed. As long as we don't have any leaks, then we can move forward to the next step. Now, as I showed you at the beginning of the video, you will get some drain line with the system. This drain line will hook to your actual drain line of your home and to this front barb fitting, which is the drain line for the softener. These are basically barb fittings, so you're just going to push this line on there, and then I use a hose clamp to secure it. That way I know it's not going to blow off there. Because this will drain with force. There will be some force behind it, so you want to make sure it's secured. Slide it over the pipe, or the hose. Slide the hose over the fitting. Take our screwdriver and tighten it down. Make sure you have it tight. You don't want it to come loose, like I said. We want to keep in mind we have to put this cover back on, so we want to come in the back with this drain line. Okay, once we know about how long we need, we can cut it. You can use a razor knife. I'm going to use this cutter. I have it close to me. The access line we're just going to put to the side because I'm going to show you what we can do with that here in a minute. It's going to ship with just a little bit of silicone grease. Typically this is enough for those fittings. I showed a tube, and you're welcome to buy a whole tube, but typically this is going to be enough for the installation and you shouldn't have to buy additional. Also, in that white box will come one clamp. It will not furnish this clamp. This clamp is going to be up to you to furnish depending on how you hook this to your drain system. This clamp is designated for this connection. So we're going to put the clamp on there. Again, we're going to push this hose over the barb. Make sure it's on there far enough. Take our screwdriver, tighten it down. Now our connections are made. The only other thing that we need to do is we're going to need to plug our transformer in. I recommend you go ahead and do it now. It's going to be easier to get to than when you have the cover back on it. In the white box, there'll be an additional white box that will have the transformer in it. You'll see it has an end on it. Again, you're going to plug this into a 110 outlet, preferably surge protected. You plug it into the end like that, and then you can set it to the side for now until we're ready to plug it in. Like I said, all this needs to feed out the back because we have the opening in the back that we have to close up. The other thing I wanted to show you is that in that box, you'll get a little plastic Allen type wrench. These are designed to help you to turn these. You can put them in here. Gives you a little bit more leverage on these valves to turn them. Before we put the cap back on, we want to bring this system online. Once we get the cap back on, it's going to be tough to get to these valves. So what we want to do is we want to fill this tank, but we want to fill it slow. We don't want to slam it with full pressure at once because you can break something internally within the actual pressure vessel. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to our incoming line, which in this case is on the right hand side. You're facing the unit. And we're going to slowly open this up. When I say slow, I mean slow. You want to just barely crack this open. You'll start to hear water flow into the tank. You want to slowly open this up and let it sit, and then eventually you'll hear the water stop at the tank. Once you hear the water stop at the tank, then we're going to go ahead and open up a faucet or a garden spigot down line, preferably a garden spigot, something that's open port. Once you've done that, then you can start to open your outlet slowly. And once you have them both about, I don't know, quarter to half inch or halfway open, then you're going to go let the water run until we don't see any air. And that's at the actual garden spigot that you opened. Once you're not getting air, then we can slowly start to open these until they're fully open. Once they're fully open and you're not getting any air out, the water will be a little cloudy at first. You want to run it till it runs clear. And that lets you know that you have all the air out of there and the media has been rinsed. Now once these are fully open, then you can shut the garden spigot off down line and then come back here and check the system for leaks anywhere on the system, any of the connections you made or anything to do with the valve. Because if you have leaks, you want to fix that now. Now inside here where the valve hooks to the tank, if it's leaking there, it's going to leak down into the brine tank. So you also want to look and make sure you don't have water running down the tank. As long as you don't have any leaks, your system's online now, pressurized, it's ready to work. We can put the lid back on. We'll put the front on first, slide it over the two screws in the back, making sure that our lines are not being pinched and they're in place. Then we take the Phillips screwdriver and tighten the screws back down. This drain line can be used as an overflow, and that is that first barb fitting that we put on, the very first thing we did. You can push that hose up onto that barb fitting. You don't need a clamp here because it shouldn't be pressure, it's just an overflow tube. And then this you would run to a floor drain or a sump pump or something like that. Obviously it's not going to do us any good to run it up here because it's not going to run uphill. We want it to be lower, so we'd run that over to a floor drain or a floor sump. If you don't have anything like that close to you, you can run it into at least a bucket or something like that, and you can monitor the bucket and make sure it's not starting to accumulate water.